got the inspirational lady, Ange Tyler, somebody I've known for many years, who is the driving force, along with her husband Steve and others, but the driving force behind the ELY Memorial Fund Charity. Now, the charity was set up in memory of your daughter, Emma Louise Young, who tragically lost her life in a road collision accident when she was just 23 years old.
Yeah.
I just want to say here and now, really, God, incomprehensible loss. And I have absolutely no idea how you would have been feeling and still feel now. I do know that some of the experience that you had led you on to starting the ELY Memorial Fund. But before we go down that road, I wonder, would you like to tell us a little bit about Emma? What was she like?
Yeah, that's so lovely of you to ask me about Emma, Dawn. Emma was 23, tall, beautiful, long blonde hair, very loving and caring in nature. And she always wanted to help people, you know, and she trained to be a sort of student, sort of carer in terms of looking after disabled adults.
Wow.
And she just got a job at number 1 Ledbury Road. She'd been there. And then she was in Barscourt as well. And then she went to St. Owen's Centre, and she absolutely idolised all the young people there. No matter what disability they had, she was always making sure everybody was listened to, heard, and she used to take care of them really, really well. So that's what Emma was like at work ethic. But at home, she was a typical teenager whenever, you know, having our disputes and
Yes.
standing
All normal.
Yes. But we also did a lot of things together. We played darts together, we used to go to the gym together, share each other's clothes, you know, like you do, had our disagreements, and but she was just a beautiful, caring girl, and I miss her hugely. It's like every single day, you know, I think about what would she be doing, where would she be now. I know she'd have children because that's what she'd always wanted, because she was an only child. But she was just a pleasure and a joy and loving, and I really miss all that, you know, and our chats.
I can only imagine. And I think I'll share with you, I remember seeing you at a friend's son's birthday party, and you were sat on the sofa with Emma, and I remember she was leaning in to you, and I remember her beautiful long blonde hair, and you could see the closeness. I don't know how old she was. She may have been 7 or something, but I just always remember picturing there. As I said before, I cannot even comprehend that loss. And as you just said, with grief, a lot of people come up with these kind of statements or comments and sort of, you know, aren't you over it yet? Or it's time to move on, etc. And I think that with grief, this is my take on it, is that I don't know whether it's moving on or moving forward, but you take your grief with you. And I'm sure that there are times when it's overwhelmingly sad again, and you will always miss Emma. Equally, you will always love Emma. So that continues. And I think when people in society make these comments such as, you know, it's been 5 years, 10 years, you should be over it, or he or she wouldn't want you to be sad, or they're in a better place. These comments, I can see you nodding, and it's true. It's I don't know why we're still saying them. It drives me insane. because these comments, and I think I've mentioned this on other of these conversations I'm running through the week of National Grief Awareness, but they're not emotionally helpful in any shape or form. So we really do need to stop saying that. And I'm sure that along the way, I mean, I think, was it 2010?
Yeah.
When dear Emma died. So that's 11 years where you may have heard these kinds of comments. I just think we always remember the way someone's made us feel, and it's nearly always through words. So language is extremely important, and I just think this, we need to up the game with language, because there's never a time that it means more than when you're grieving.
And I think that's, you know, after losing Emma, families didn't, and people didn't understand the depth of my grief. And I think that's the hardest thing you can ever, you can't really say anything, because you can't explain that depth of sadness, and you can't tell people how you truly feel, because I couldn't express that sheer deep pain of losing Emma at 23. She was my right hand daughter. She was. We did everything together. It was like somebody had ripped me in half, because without Emma I couldn't function. And we had friends that couldn't cope with that loss, didn't know how to talk to us about that loss. And when you're in that depth of loss, you can't say anything, you can't explain it. And I think that's where the breakdown of communication comes in with grief. Because people, until you go through something so destructive, it's you can't explain it. And there's many families have gone through death through road injury and road collisions, and the fact is, 1 minute everything is fine, and the next minute everything's upside down. Your whole world has been tipped upside down because they're not coming home. And it's all the paraphernalia that goes with it in a road traffic collision. It's not just dealing with a medical issue, it's everything. It's police, it's inquest, it's everything, media attention,
nightmare on top of nightmare.
And I find that really gruesome.
You actually say here on the notes that I've asked for the interview that actually a lot of what happened, and I'd like you to go into it a bit if you're okay with doing this, around not so much around the police handling, but the fact that I think after a certain time they had to move on. Maybe they were understaffed, maybe they didn't have the training, I don't know, but I do remember you saying to me that one day you were there and this lady was with you when you were going to an official appointment. I don't know whether she's a family liaison or whatever, and then that was it. She said at the end of it, sorry, that's me done now, you know, I hope you get on okay. And I remember you saying you thought you were going to collapse. You were in shock. That help was going to be severed just like that. I mean, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
I had from the very point of impact at that night, we were sort of cocooned with police, and if it wasn't every day or once a week or whatever, we were supported by the police, because they had to keep engaging with us and letting us know how the process was going on. Because Emma died in a collision on her own, it had to go because she was on her own, it had to go to an inquest.
Right.
And that took about 8 months for that to happen. But in that whole process of time, the police was with us and updating when they can. There was elements of time that they couldn't provide me anything, but I was never prepared for that sheer break from the family liaison officer after the inquest. And that's when it became very brutal, because the day of the inquest, and it was you know, it was found accidental death because nobody else was involved. So the fact that it was at the end of that inquest,
Sure.
and we were stood sort of like upset and everything else from that huge inquest, when my liaison officer turned around and said, you know, there's no further support we can give you now because it's the end of the case with Emma's accident.
Gosh.
And there was no after meeting to just go over all the
Bring it to a conclusion, or
bring it
something.
to a conclusion,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well as providing that proper goodbye.
Yeah,
And
I was
that
going to say, it
that
sounds
wasn't
like
there.
it for whatever reason, and they do an amazing job, but for whatever reason, as soon as their duty or what they were expected to do or to cover stopped, i.e. the inquest, and it's over, there was no buffer, there was no conclusion, there was no compassionate way to say, I'm really sorry, but this is, you know, you're on your own now. And I think that compounded everything as well, didn't it, from our previous discussion?
Yeah, I wasn't prepared.
No.
I wasn't prepared for that sheer cut-off.
No.
Because you've had this hand really leading the way.
You and leading, yes.
But it wasn't tackling my grief element. It was just supporting me to know exactly what was going on because of Emma. We just didn't know what happened in Emma's accident.
Yeah.
We were all drawing conclusions, but until this inquest actually says what is the ultimate reason for Emma's death.
Yeah.
And we still didn't have any answers really. It was down to either an animal had sort of perhaps come over across the road, or someone could have swerved on the road and not realised, or she could have sneezed, anything of that. So that's why it was concluded accidental death, because we couldn't have an answer.
I see.
But there was always more core questions though about what more information they could have given it to me, because all I needed was that information to be able to understand what had gone wrong.
Yes.
But it was the fact that day, I'll never forget it. And she said, I'm sorry, I have to move on. And I think, really? Oh, okay. But I didn't really understand that impact at that point.
No.
It was because it took me a good couple of weeks to digest the inquest and thinking, well, what else can I do? And then it just threw me. I just sort of fell, I think, because I
can only imagine, because the inquest and the questions you wanted answering, that's a quest for knowledge, isn't it? Well, what happened? What happened? I need to know what happened. Tell me what happened. And as much as they could, they gave you the answers they could. However, this lifeline, this hand, this support, which was there for you and you really needed, and it was fantastic, it was there, was severed. That support just stopped really quickly. And it doesn't surprise me that, albeit a few weeks later, that you feel overwhelmed again and you feel like your legs are going to give way. You go into shock again, if you like. It's just, I just can't cope with this.
So I was very lost anyway, Dawn. I was I didn't function very well at all. I just didn't want to function really. And then my lifeline left me, and I thought, what do I do now? And I think I reclused even further, and sort of detached myself more, because I didn't know what the purpose was. Why did it happen to me? Why it destroyed family? Why? It was all whys. There was no answers. Why? And I think I just completely collapsed and said, I can't do this. I can't do this without Emma. And I can't live without Emma, even though I had a wonderful husband and family around me that kept me upright best they could. Inside I was just dying, and that took control of me.
Well, grief is the most overwhelming emotion that as a human we'll ever feel. And I think everybody who's listening to this will absolutely feel the intensity of that depth of despair and loss that you talk about, because it's so real. And I think this is probably a good time to bring in, why did you set up ELY? What was your reasons behind it?
In hindsight, I didn't want to do anything because I thought, how can I do anything to support anybody? I couldn't even support myself.
No. It's a big thing. It's a huge
because I didn't know what to do. But my niece Kira was my lifeline, I think, because she could see me dying, and she needed to give me that purpose again. And I think if that hadn't come about, I'm not sure where I'd be today.
That's extremely honest, and thank you for that. And again, many a parent, I'm sure, who's lost a child can resonate. Some of that can resonate with them, even though everybody's experience is different, of course, we're all individuals, but there'll be elements of that will hit hard to them too. It's truth. Because
I knew everything about Emma, her whole personality, her life expectations, her work ethics, her dreams, what she wanted to do, and having all that not taken away from me and not be able to achieve all those wonderful things that she wanted to do, is just broke me. And then I just couldn't find my way out of that black hole. And I always felt if I was always in quicksand, because I'd sort of come up for a bit of air and I'd go back under it, and everything surrounded me. So it was so restrictive, this grief, that I was suffocating. And this is where Kira sort of gave me that bit of light, but I wasn't really in that zone. And she wanted to do something in Emma's memory more than anything. But she also saw us struggling with the financial aspect of Emma's funeral, because we didn't have sufficient money for Emma's funeral. We had some, but not all of it. And she said, how do other families cope when they go and they've lost somebody in a car accident? How do they find that sort of money in such a small space of time? You're not prepared for that. That tragedy, that cost. And it's completely different to other aspects of losing a loved one. We just don't know. It's a sudden death, and no one's prepared for it. So Kira wanted to help in that respect financially. So this is why we set up ELY, which stands for Emma Louise Young. That's her initials. And ELY is which was sort of put together from another family member because of the Bible, ELY. And so we just felt that was the right choice of ELY. But it was set up to financially support families who tragically lose their young child between 17 and 25 in a road traffic collision, because it's horrible to say, Dawn, that they are one of the highest statistics in the world, because they are young drivers. They take more things for granted. They don't look at a choice, just do it. They don't look at the consequences, and they're just out to enjoy driving, like we all did when we were all young drivers. So that's why ELY was set up, to help pay towards a basic funeral. And that's how we worked with undertakers to make sure we could offer some form of financial support at that point of impact, because whenever you lose somebody, all you've got, you know, all of a sudden you're bombarded with paperwork.
Yeah.
You have to appoint an undertaker. You have to, you know, do all this other background paperwork which you're not used to. And you've got, and you know, and you have to appoint an undertaker within 48 hours, if that, you know, and all of a sudden you're like thrown into all that before you realize. And it was, well, I can't remember, my family did all that. I was in a sort of, I was in a state of shock because I had to have medication. So I wasn't really compos mentis during that whole process. I was talking a lot of rubbish because of my brain was talking for me, which was the anguish and the emotional side of Emma.
It's all completely understandable. And as I said before, when you have such devastating news, and it's a sudden death as well, I can only imagine that you do go into a world of shock. And therefore, thank God there are people around us that can go forward and do the admin stuff and do what needs to be done. Because I can only imagine if it was me, I wouldn't be able to function. Not a chance. Not a chance at all. You know, I mean, your brain wouldn't be thinking, right, it can't, can it? It just can't. Because it's an all body experience, grief. It's heart, it's mind, it's body, it's everything. So good on Kira, because even though you weren't in the right frame of mind maybe and you were lost, she felt that what about other people like you who were struggling, other families, maybe we could do something here. And now, and for a while, you've been running ELY, and I know you do a phenomenal job at fundraising, and you have all these wonderful ideas that where people can dip in their pockets, and we'll mention just in a moment about how they can contact you and donate. But I think the fact that the driving side of it, I know that you do like a driver's awareness, and I think you do that maybe with the police. So before we finish, would you just like to mention something about the training that you do on awareness?
Yeah, that happened in 2015. A fire officer and a police officer was listening to me talk to a group of students about the ripple, they call it the ripple effect from losing a loved one in a road traffic collision, because it is a ripple effect. It's not just your family and your close family is affected, it's everyone else around you. So we're looking at emergency services, we're looking at the medical profession, you know, we're looking at the coroners, the inquest, you're looking at traffic investigation officers, and it's a ream of other people and services that are affected by a road traffic collision, and that's why they call it a ripple effect. So it was from doing that, I ended up being approached by this Peter Hope, his name was, and Chris Lee, to help talk about my experience as a bereaved mum, losing a child in a road traffic collision. And I thought, I'm not sure I could do that, because I didn't feel, what's the word I'm looking for, capable of sharing that experience at that time. But it was really funny because they both said, there's a lot of people around you that will provide that support. And that's where everything changed, really, Dawn, for me, because I went along to the Dying to Drive initiative, which is organised by Hereford Worcester Fire Service, supported by the police ambulance service, the road safety partnerships. And I shared 10 minutes of my ripple effect, but initially talking about the 48 hours after the knock at the door, because the police have to make that knock at the door, or they got to come to you. They will not do it over the phone. They have to knock at the door, and it doesn't matter what time of day it is, they will knock at your door. That's why 10:06 is poignant because that's the time of death.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at 20 to 12, we were informed that Emma died. And that was 2 police officers stood at the door. And that, just looking at their faces, I knew.
Yeah. Everybody's nightmare. Everybody's nightmare.
Yeah.
And that's, you see policemen at the door.
And that's how I got involved with Dying to Drive. And from that, I've been able to speak to other students. I've held Dying to Drive at the Hereford Ludlow College. I've spoken to numerous groups at Hartpury College.
Yeah.
I've been in to talk. I'm also doing my young driver experience program now, where young 14 to 17-year-olds will come to the college. It's set up in an enclosed environment. They can have the opportunity to drive a car with our Go Driving instructors. Mm-hmm. And they are absolutely phenomenal at 14. They are amazing. You know, you wouldn't think a 14-year-old could drive a car. No. They can. Wow. And they are amazing. And then we also introduce into car maintenance, basic car, which you should be doing most of the time. Yeah. Roadside first aid, because even if you do have a small bump, someone might hit the windscreen and might have a bleed. Yes. So we do basic roadside safety. And we also bring the police along for them to have a chat with them. They open their car up, bring out all their paraphernalia, and they absolutely love it because it's up and personal and close to the police, because it's not them and us. The police are there to support you.
Absolutely. And you're right. And what a fantastic initiative, because with the information you're sharing, you personally, but everybody else that's there as well, and the young students getting involved, it could be life-changing. It could be. And that's the amazing thing about it. And if they don't have the personal story, and if they don't have the information or the know-how, then they can't apply it.
No.
So that is, gosh, that's an incredible initiative.
The last initiative we had, which was July, just gone, the wealth of thanks and acknowledgement of what we'd done in the whole day they'd been with us was hugely inspiring. And even though I don't take being sort of, you know, proud and all that, I don't take it very well, and people say you should, and it's very hard to do that. I just want to make sure that no one goes through the suffering we went through. I don't want anybody not to have the support that we didn't have. And I don't want any family not to have the opportunity for their young person to learn to drive and be a safer driver. And if I can save one life, Dawn, then I've done okay. If I can save more than one, I've done more than that. Because I don't want any family to go through what we went through.
Well, I knew you'd make me cry. And you have. And thank you for that.
Sorry.
Thank you for making me cry. And I mean that. I'm not criticizing. I think I find you, I know you don't like compliments. I find you inspirational. I know that when you won an award with the Women's International Day, and I remember your speech, and it was so true. I'd rather not get this. I'd rather Emma be here.
Yeah.
And I can't even find the words. Of course, that's true. I mean, it goes without saying, you would never want to be in the situation you're in, but you are here tragically. But the good that you are doing, the information you are passing, the awareness you are raising, the support you are giving makes you incredibly inspirational. And I thank you so much for sharing everything you've shared with me this evening. As always, I love talking to you. I treasure our friendship, and I hope that this conversation around grief gets a lot of attention. And just before I finish, could you please give the details for ELY, for anybody who does want to donate, for anybody who, God forbid, is in the situation you were in and they need that information you talked about and the hugs pack and everything else. So I'm going to thank you enormously for being with me, and I'll leave you just with those contacts if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dawn. You've given me so much support as well through my grief I didn't realise I hadn't recovered from, and that personal experience with you will always be part of me. So thank you so much as well. If anybody would like to know more about our charity, everything is found on our website, which is www.ely-memorial-fund.org.uk. If anybody would like to contact me for any donations, it's all on the website, and my telephone number is there as well. And also you can drop me an email at hugs4you@ely-memorial-fund.org.uk. Thank you again, Dawn. Thank you.
You're so special. Thank you, and have a lovely evening. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself.
Yes, I will. I'll go and light my candle.
Yes, and you can do that on the 8th as well.
I will
okay,
do.
at 6 o'clock.
Yes,
Thank
I
you
will
so
do.
much. Thank you so
Thank you,
much for
Dawn.
joining me.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.